Welcome back to another episode in our commentary series, exploring the writings of Ajmal from his website, theborderofamind.com. His latest post, A Call for Authenticity. There's something in there I wanted to kind of dive into with you today.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think?
Well, what I think is fascinating is how he frames the problem. Like, he doesn't just ask if we're living authentically or not. He talks about it as these subterranean currents of sacred vitality getting blocked. It's like he's describing a gradual loss of life force, not just like a lack of, being ourselves.
Right. It's deeper than that, than just feeling a bit off. He's arguing that a lot of us, we're living on autopilot, just going through the motions without connecting to what truly matters. It's easy to get caught up in checking boxes, achieving goals, meeting expectations. But are those really our expectations? Or are they things society has conditioned us to value?
Yeah, that's where his call for authenticity comes in. But he doesn't really define it in simple terms. Ajmal seems to be saying that authenticity, it isn't just about being true to some pre-existing self. It's about actively creating ourselves through the choices we make, even when those choices are difficult.
Okay, so let's unpack that. He uses this phrase, unique magic ingredient, to describe the potential within each of us. So it's not just about discovering who we already are. It's actually about shaping ourselves into the people we want to become.
Exactly. It's about aligning our actions with our values, even when that means facing challenges or like going against the grain. He even uses the imagery of deserts and mountains to describe this, the terrain we might encounter on this path.
That's powerful imagery. Do you think he's being a bit too metaphorical here, though? I mean, most of us aren't literally wandering through deserts, right?
Well, I think the metaphor works because it speaks to the feeling of those challenges. Like, think about a time you had to make a tough decision, one that maybe went against everyone's expectations, but felt true to you. That internal struggle, that feeling of being alone in your conviction, that's like navigating a metaphorical desert.
I see what you mean. So embracing authenticity, it's not about some blissful, easy path. It's about being willing to face those inner and outer obstacles because we know it leads to a richer, more fulfilling life.
Precisely. And Ajmal gives some compelling examples of what that can look like. Like, he talks about people who have made radical shifts in their careers, found new communities that align with their values, or embraced creative expressions they'd suppressed for years.
I'm really curious to dig into some of those examples. But before we do, I want to pause here and let our listeners consider this. Where in your own life do you feel those subterranean currents getting blocked? What choices are you making out of obligation or expectation versus genuine passion? We'll come back to this, but it's worth reflecting on as we continue.
Picking back up on those examples, one that really stood out to me was the story of the woman who left her high-powered corporate job to open a bakery. On the surface, it might seem like a simple career change, but the way Ajmal describes it, it was this profound act of aligning her actions with her deepest values.
Yeah, it's a great example. She wasn't just chasing a passion for baking bread. She was creating a life that felt meaningful to her, even if it meant stepping away from society considers success. It's like what we were talking about earlier, that idea of creating yourself through choices.
Exactly. And it wasn't easy. She faced financial uncertainty, skepticism from her family and friends, and just the sheer exhaustion of building a business from scratch.
Right.
But she persevered because she was driven by something deeper than external validation.
That's where the grit and grace come in, right? That Ajmal mentions. Authenticity isn't some fairy tale where everything falls into place. It's about embracing the challenges and integrating them into our journey.
Absolutely. And it's not about achieving some perfect state of being either. Ajmal seems to be suggesting that authenticity is an ongoing process, a constant evolution of self-discovery and creation.
So it's not like we reach a point where we're like, okay, I'm authentic now, I can check that box. It's more about constantly asking ourselves, am I living in a way that feels aligned with who I am and what I value?
Precisely. And being willing to course correct when we realize we've veered off track, which brings up another point. Ajmal emphasizes that authenticity looks different for everyone. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right. The woman who opened a bakery, she found her unique magic ingredient in the art of creating delicious bread and fostering a sense of community. But for someone else, it might be expressed through activism or scientific discovery or raising a family with intention.
Yeah. What's important is that we're actively seeking those avenues of expression, those ways of contributing to the world that feel uniquely ours.
And I think that's one of the most powerful takeaways from his writing, that sense of urgency, that call to action. He's not saying we should wait for some perfect moment to start living authentically. He's urging us to begin right now, today.
Yeah, he's challenging us to examine our lives, to identify those areas where we're operating on autopilot or conforming to expectations that no longer serve us, and then to take those small but significant steps towards a life that feels more aligned with who we are at our core.
And that can be a daunting prospect. I know from my own experience that leaving behind the familiar, even if it's not truly fulfilling, can feel terrifying.
Absolutely. It's that feeling of stepping into the unknown, facing those metaphorical deserts and mountains. But Ajmal assures us that the rewards are well worth the risk. He suggests that it's in those moments of vulnerability, those times when we're willing to let go of what no longer serves us, that we discover a deeper level of passion and purpose.
He doesn't sugarcoat it either. He acknowledges that the path to authenticity can be fraught with challenges, setbacks, and moments of self-doubt.
Right. But he also reminds us that those challenges are an integral part of the journey. They test our resilience, they refine our values, and ultimately lead us to a more profound understanding of ourselves.
It's not about achieving some idealized state of perfection, but about embracing the messy, imperfect beauty of becoming ourselves.
Yeah, and it's about showing up every day, aligning our actions with our values, and allowing our unique magic ingredient to shine through.
Speaking of shining through, Ajmal's blog, theborderofamind.com, is a testament to that very idea. His writing, his photography, his entire online presence. It's a reflection of his unique perspective and his commitment to living authentically.
I completely agree. There's a rawness and vulnerability in his work that's incredibly refreshing. He's not afraid to share his struggles, his doubts, and his triumphs, which makes his message all the more relatable and inspiring.
And for our listeners, I highly recommend checking out theborderofamind.com. You'll find yourself getting lost in his words, reflecting on your own journey, and perhaps even discovering new ways to express your own unique magic ingredient.
Yeah, it's a virtual oasis of creativity, contemplation, and a reminder that the journey of self-discovery is an adventure worth embracing.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to shift the focus back to you, our listeners. We've explored some of the key ideas from Ajmal's post, but what resonated most with you?
What are your thoughts on this idea of subterranean currents and unique magic ingredients? Have you experienced moments in your own life where you felt that call to authenticity?
We'd love to hear your reflections, your struggles, and your triumphs on this journey, so please share your thoughts on our social media channels. And let's continue this conversation. This has been really interesting unpacking all this stuff with you. Ajmal's post. It's a real call to action, isn't it?
It is, and it's not just about big life-altering decisions either. He also talks about finding those small moments of alignment throughout the day, like choosing to spend time with people who energize us, or carving out space for creative expression, even if it's just for a few minutes.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, easy to get overwhelmed by this idea of completely overhauling our lives. Maybe the key is to just focus on those little choices, those daily acts of courage that move us closer to who we want to be.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a mindset of intentionality, constantly asking ourselves, does this action, this choice, feel aligned with my values?
And sometimes the answer is going to be no. We're human. We make mistakes. We get caught up in old patterns. But the important thing is to keep coming back to that question. Keep course correcting as we go.
And to be kind to ourselves in the process. Ajmal's not advocating for some kind of ruthless self-improvement. He recognizes that the journey to authenticity is as much about self-compassion as it is about courage.
And I think that's a really important message, especially in a world that often celebrates relentless striving. It's okay to stumble, to question, to take detours. The journey itself is what makes us who we are.
Beautifully put. And as we continue on our own journeys, I think it's helpful to remember Ajmal's words. He reminds us that we all have something unique to offer the world, that those subterranean currents are a source of incredible power, and that living with intention, it's a gift not only to ourselves, but to everyone around us.
Couldn't agree more. And for our listeners, if you're feeling inspired to explore more of Ajmal's work, be sure to visit his website, theborderofamind.com. You'll find a wealth of thought-provoking essays, stunning photography, a unique perspective on life that might just spark something within you.
And remember, this is just one piece of a much larger conversation. We'll continue to explore Ajmal's writing in future episodes of our commentary series, so stay tuned for more insights from theborderofamind.com.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing the journey of becoming your most authentic self.